But Murray is from up by Edmonton, and he is with our district, our PAOC district, and he does something really interesting with our district. He's part of a group called the Radical Stewardship, and they operate all across Canada, and specifically Murray here in Alberta, and he is here to give a message about financial stewardship of our resources, and so many different aspects, and it's going to be a great message. I promise you guys, it's 10 minutes longer than our normal messages, but it's going to be 2 times more impactful. Sorry, Pastor Stephen. Come on up, Murray. We'd love to have you up here.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope Stephen didn't hear that either. By the way, you got a great pastor. I just want you to know that. I'm sure you know that. But he really is. He's well respected in the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada district office and throughout our district. And I wish him well on a cruise, but not that good because I wish I was with him. Thank you, worship team, for your songs. That last one is one of my all-time favorite songs. I learned it probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Love it. And the one before that, a new one. I've not heard that one. You've already won. But I love that phrase in there. I don't know what you're doing, but I know what you've done. Anybody ever had those moments? I have no idea what you're doing, God. But it's okay because I know what you've done. So that's a great phrase. I'm actually taking that song with me. I'm going to take it back to the church where I'm an interim pastor in Sylvan Lake and get them to learn it. So thank you for allowing me to come today. First time I've ever been in your church. I now know where the center of the universe is. I did not know that before, but I do know now. And it's so good to be here. And especially on a day where there's no wind. I used to live in Lethbridge, so I know what wind is like. You know, that wind comes from the west, funnels through the crow's nest, and it's great when it's a Chinook and takes the snow away. It's not so good when it's 20 below, and you die before you get to your car. Money is something that touches the life of every single person. I don't care whether it's how much you get paid at work or how much you owe on your credit card or how much you give your kids for allowance or how much you've saved for your retirement. Money affects every single person. 1 John chapter 3 and verse 2 says, "Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you in every area of your life, even as your soul is getting along well." You know, one of the benefits of following Jesus is that we are given principles in God's word that if we follow them, will bring health to us in all sorts of areas of our lives, spiritually, relationally, physically, emotionally, and financially, which is what this seminar is all about today. I'm hoping that by the time we're over today, that you'll have taken 1 or 2 principles home with you that you'll put into your life so that you will have a healthier life. So many people worry about money. That's not something what God intended. Marriages end because of money problems. That's not what God intended. That's why he put in the Bible so many different things. If we follow them, we will live healthier lives in so many different areas. So maybe that's why the Bible talks more about money than any other single subject. In fact, God put over 2,300 verses in the Bible that reference money in one way or another so that we'll be able to live financially healthy lives. Now, that means that we should be reading the Bible to find out what it says on this subject. That's what we're going to do today. Money is a subject that the church should be talking about. Now, I know we all have our own ideas on money. What is most important is we find out, what does God say about the subject, and then live according to those principles, which is something that we call radical stewardship, living different than most people live. And I can tell you from personal experience that when we live by the principles of God's word, it's by far the smartest way to live. The word radical comes from a Latin word, radicalis, which means to be rooted in. That means your view, my view on money, finances is going to be determined by where you are rooted. So your principles, your practices will be based on what you believe to be true. That's why as Christians, we need to find out what the Bible says. And then when we learn that, we live that out in our lives, in every area of life, but also with money. So I want to start this morning by reading to you a passage of scripture that you are probably familiar with. It's found in Luke chapter 16. It's going to be on the screen. It's one of those stories with a meaning. parables that Jesus tells. So Jesus told his disciples there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, "What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer." The manager said to himself, "What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do, so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses." So he called in each one of his master's debtors, and he asked the first, "How much do you owe my master?" 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, "Take your bill, sit down quickly, make it 450. Then he asked the second, "How much do you owe?" 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, "Take your bill, make it 800. The manager commended the dishonest manager because he'd acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of light." Now, admittedly, that's one of the stranger stories that Jesus tells, because at first glance, it sounds like he's commending dishonesty or cheating. But if you read a little bit more carefully, what we actually hear Jesus saying is he's commending this manager for his prudence and his planning. That's what the last verse says. The master commended the dishonest manager because he'd acted shrewdly. Now, I doubt very much that the owner of this company was really happy with the loss of his money, but maybe he had a certain appreciation for how this manager had acted. And so maybe he said something like this to himself. It's not in the parable, but I just kind of guess this is what he said. "That crook, I fire him for mismanagement, and then he has the nerve to steal from me on the way out the door. And he does it in such a clever way. You have to hand it to him. He's a scoundrel of the worst kind, but he's certainly an ingenious scoundrel." So he's not praising his former manager for being a thief, but he is praising him for being a shrewd thief and for his strategic planning. The word in the original language in Greek that is translated shrewd, at least in my Bible, means to act with foresight. It's the idea of somebody who's able to look into the future, see what's coming, and to make decisions today, make plans in the present. So this manager, he knew what was happening. He could see the writing on the wall. He knows his job is ending. He knows that in the future there's not going to be very much income. The likelihood of him ever getting another managerial job was pretty slim. And so seeing the future, seeing what is coming down the road, he acts. Now, he does it deceptively, but at least he does something. And that's a message that Jesus is trying to get across to you and I. We're to be prudent planners when it comes to the future. Now, that's in every area of our life, but certainly in the area of finances. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. That's why I've been invited by your pastor to come, is to help you plan for the future in a very strategic, sensible way. Now, when you came in today, I think you were all handed a booklet. If you didn't get one, there are still some available. If you didn't get one, maybe just quickly raise your hand and somebody, there's about 5 or 6. We're going to take just keep your hands raised till you get one. Follow along. We'll make sure everybody gets one. One right here, and then 2 or 3 on the other side. There we go. We'll wait till everybody gets one. We're not. Are we having lunch together after? Is that correct? Yeah, there's no rush. We can go to at least 2 or 3. There we go. We gave you a workout today. You don't have to exercise when you get home. Thank you so much. So we're going to work our way through at least parts of this booklet today. My hope is that at the end of the sermon, there'll be a couple things that you'll grab onto. You say, you know what, I can do that. I may not be able to do everything, but I can do that. And I want you to hopefully be better informed and then hopefully motivated to make a couple of changes in your life. So turn to page 8 of the book. I think that's the right page. Page 6 is a quiz. You guys can take that at your own leisure. And as you're going to note on the screen, we're going to look at, rather quickly today, 6 shrewd biblical principles for personal finances. So principle number 1, find the spot marked X. You see, the very first thing you need to do if you're going to make some fundamental changes in your financial world is to find out where you are today. You need to make a very careful assessment of your present situation because it's really difficult to follow directions if you don't even know where you are. So let's say you're in a new location for the very first time, maybe a big mall, or you're in a new city. You're not exactly sure which direction you should go in to get to the place that you want to end up at. So you may look for a sign that says you are here or a kiosk. Because once you know where you are, you're going to be better able to find the right path to the store that you want to get to. Well, it works exactly the same way in our financial world. I may not like where I am. I may recognize that things aren't the way that they should be. And I may even have some ideas of where I'd rather be. But until I know where I am, it's going to be extremely difficult to get to where I want to end up. So there are 4 things that I need to do. Number 1, I need to be honest. So if I'm lost somewhere, I need to admit it. If my financial world is not what it should be, I need to analyze my situation as it is, not how I wish it was. If my finances are a mess, it doesn't help me, doesn't do any good to pretend otherwise. So I need to be honest. Secondly, I need to be open. Kind of time for show and tell. Now, if you're married, I'd advise that you both sit down and discuss your finances together. And I would also advise you do it in a coffee shop. Why? Because it's really hard to yell at your spouse when you're in public. So it might also be a time you want to ask somebody for some help, some guidance, and maybe some accountability. Number 3, you need to get thoughtful. You need to ask yourself the question, how did I get to this spot? What mistakes did I or we make? What good money principles did I ignore? Where did I go wrong? What scriptural principles in God's word did I miss? And number 4, it's okay to get emotional. Money is an emotional topic. Whenever I do pre-marriage counseling, I'll spend a lot of time talking about money, each other's view, because I know money can cause some emotion. Now, I don't know if the couple on the screen here was having an argument about money or not, but there's definitely some emotion that's happening in that room. Now, let me add this. It's okay to analyze where you are and get scared. According to some stats in 2023, the average Canadian owes $21,000 excluding mortgage debt. So a couple is somewhere around $42,000 that they owe. Now, my wife and I don't have any debt. That means our $42,000 must be divided up amongst the rest of Canadians. In the same year, 2023, it was reported that 46% of Albertans, that's where you and I live, are less than $200 away from failing to meet their financial obligations. That means that if the tires on their car went, that's like $1,000 right there. They're going to have to put it on their credit card because they don't have the money to pay for it. That means they're going to pay interest on those tires. There was a survey commissioned in Ontario. It says that 75% of Canadians between the ages of 55 and 64 who have not already retired, but only 10 years away, have less than $100,000 in savings for when they retire. Of those surveyed, 44% claimed that they had less than $5,000 saved for their retirement. So it's okay to get scared, but it's okay. The opposite emotion is be hopeful. For most people, there is still time to turn things around, to change direction, to plan for a better financial future. So you can change, your situation can change. It'll take work, it'll take discipline, but it can happen. Let me tell you about a very fundamental law of economics. If you want to find the spot marked X, where you are at present, you just do this very simple financial exercise. It's called the OO law of finance. The first O is determine everything that you own. The second O is to find out everything that you owe. So you subtract what you owe from what you own, and you will find out what your net worth is. So on page 21 of your booklet, there's a little chart that allows you to do that. Now, hopefully after you've done that, you won't also say, oh, I think I'm in trouble. So on the screen is an example of what somebody owns. In this case, they have a house, they have a couple cars, they have an RV cottage property, some savings and mutuals, TFSAs, they have some money in the bank. They own $448,800. Next screen. This is what they owe. They still have a mortgage on their house. They still owe something on their property. They owe their mother-in-law. Not a great idea necessarily, but this is what they did. They owe their mother-in-law $8,000. They owe $238,000. You subtract the $238 from the $448. This family's net worth is $210,800. For them, that's the spot marked X. Principle number 2. Set some financial goals. Now, in order to reach a goal, there are 5 important criteria. They're on the screen. I'm not going to go through them with you. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. But can I add this about a goal? After determining what your goals may be, write them down. One study determined that you are 42% more likely to achieve your goals when you write them down than when you don't. Just after my wife and I got married, we decided I wanted to go to Europe. I always wanted to see the Roman Colosseum. It was kind of in my head. And so we got a little glass jar, and we decorated with pictures from Europe, and we put Europe on this glass jar. And every time we had some spare change, we put it in the jar. Now, we knew that the money in that jar was never going to get us to Europe. But what it did was it was a visual reminder. It was like every day, sitting on the fridge, every day we came home, every day we were in the kitchen, Europe, Europe, Europe. And 11 months later, we were flying to Europe and standing in front of the Colosseum. Now, in your manual on page 17, there are a number of possible goals. I don't know if you want to pick one of those, or maybe you say, no, my goal isn't in there. I'm going to create a different goal. But whatever you do, write it down, put it somewhere where it's really visible to you. The chances of you succeeding in that goal are more likely if you write it down. Principle number 3 is create a financial plan. You see, once you have a goal, once you know where you are, now at least you know the direction to go in, but you know that you're going to need to make some decisions to get from where you are to where you want to go. So let me highlight 4 different decisions that are important. Number 1, make a commitment to God. When I was about 8 years old, I got a quarter, 25 cents, for weeding the garden. That was a lot of money back then. Some of you will remember that. I carried that quarter around with me. I'm a saver, so I don't like spending money easily. I didn't know how to spend it. Now, I checked out the candy store. I knew how much 25 cents would buy, but I wanted to be really careful with it. So I took it to church with me. My dad was the pastor of the church. And of course, back then, we don't do it so much anymore, but you used to pass offering plates. And so the offering plate is coming towards me. And I sensed in my heart that God wanted me to put that 25 cents in the offering. But I had worked hard. I'd weeded the entire garden for that money. I also knew the amount of candy that 25 cents would buy. So, plates coming by. As a good pastor's kid, I let it go by and I kept the 25 cents in my pocket. But through the rest of the service, God is talking to me. He says, you got to give it. So after the service ended, I still remember it. Before my dad, he finished the benediction, I ran onto the platform. I said, Dad, can you take this 25 cents and put it in the offering? Now, did God need my 25 cents? Was the church going to go bankrupt without it? I don't think so. But what God wanted to teach me was a lesson that he needed to come first in my life. A couple of weeks later, I was walking through a store with my parents. I happened to look down, and I'm standing on a dollar bill. Now, some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but we used to have things, paper dollar bills. And I'm standing on this dollar bill. I looked around. There's nobody else in the store. And I bent over. I picked it up. I put it in my pocket. But the moment I saw it, this thought came to me. You gave me your 25 cents. This is your blessing for being obedient. You see, Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 3 says, commit everything to the Lord. Whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Number 2, Get help from informed people or reliable sources. Proverbs 21:5 says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Now, I'm not a mechanic. I know nothing about cars, so when something goes wrong, I go to a mechanic for him to fix it. When there's something physically wrong, I go to a doctor because he knows more than I do. And so over the years, I've tried to seek out the advice of those who know more than I do about financial matters. It was interesting because in January, a good friend of mine, he said, Murray, you should buy some silver. I did not listen to him. That was when silver was like, I don't know, maybe $25 an ounce or something, and I heard just yesterday it hit 100. It's the one time that I've not taken good advice, and I still regret it. But learn from other people who know more about you than the subject. Thirdly, invoke the old McDonald's law of economics. Now, what's that rule? Well, you'll remember it. E-I-E-I-O. So what you do is you take your expected income. That's everything that you have coming to you on a regular basis. You subtract from that all the expenses that you normally incur in a month. That gives you the outcome. So here's on the screen an example. This person brings in $45.50 a month in investment. So he's got some interest income. He's got some rent. He owns a condo, obviously. He actually kind of works on the side. So he makes in a month $5,798. That's his normal income. Next screen shows his normal expenses. So he tithes, he gives offerings a little bit above. He's got food and clothing, all these things you have to buy. He's still got a mortgage that has to cover. He's still got a payment on his car. And he invests some money, $5,798. So you take what all your normal expenses minus all your normal income, and that's what you have coming in every month. That's the outcome. Now, in this case, this person ends at 0 at the end of every month. Now, the goal is not to end at 0, but that should be the worst case scenario. Now, let's say you try this exercise this week and you find out that instead of the end result being a 0 or better, you find yourself in a negative position. That's when you implement the next law of economics. Number 4, invoke the Einstein law of economics. F-I-R-E. Find more income or reduce some of your expenses. You see, there's only 2 ways to get out of financial trouble. First is find more income. Maybe you get a part-time job or you work overtime, or maybe you get a hobby and you make money from that. For a number of years, when we were living in a small town, I was working on my master's degree. We didn't have money to pay for that. And so I made hundreds and hundreds of wooden toys, sold them at farmers markets in order to pay for my master's degree. My daughter, who takes after me in the area of finances, a couple of years ago, she started getting old dressers. Some you'd get for $5, $10, $20. Some she even got for free, and she would refurbish them, put new handles on them, paint them in a really cool way, and then she would sell them for up to $400 a piece. Find more income. The only other way to get out of financial difficulty is to reduce your expenses. So if you're at or below 0, you can change that. Now, there's dozens of ways to reduce your expenses. I'm going to give you a list in a couple of minutes. A very simple way that you can do that in your family. Principle number 4, manage your spending. For some people, the financial problem they're in is not because they don't make enough money, it's because they don't manage well what they have. Or, if we use a biblical term, they're not very good at stewarding, looking after their financial resources. And so they need to learn better ways of spending. And in this area, there's 6 very important players. Let me go through them very quickly with you. First of all, God. Now, we've already talked a little bit about this, and you know some of the verses. They're going to appear on the screen. Matthew 6:33, seek first God and his righteousness. Everything else gets added to us. We're not to worry about tomorrow. Malachi 3:10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty. Do you know this is the only place in the Bible that God says, you can test me and I'm okay with it? In fact, every other time in the Bible, God says, don't test me. Just trust me, but don't test me. But here's the one time God says you can do it. I remember talking to our congregation a few times about money, and I would say to people, if you're not giving anything to the Lord, why don't you start? Try something. Maybe it's not 10%, maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 1%. If at the end of 3 months, you're worse off than when you started, and you haven't bought a Lamborghini, come back to me and tell me, this thing isn't working. I will give you back every penny that you've given to the church in that 3-month period. Now, so far, nobody's ever done it. I don't know whether they're just too embarrassed. I don't know what. They've never come back and asked me. Because God says, you can test me on this. And I'd advise, if you're not giving anything to the kingdom of God, try it. Try it for a couple of months. Try it for 6 months. Do something. If you're worse off at the beginning, Pastor Stephen will give you all your, well, maybe I can't talk for him. 2 Corinthians chapter 9. You know these verses. Whoever sows sparingly also reaps sparingly. People who sow generously get more. You know how many radishes you're going to get if you put in 5 seeds? You're not going to get 10. It doesn't work that way. You're going to get 5 at most. And I love this. And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you'll abound in every good work. Those verses remind us that God needs to come first in however, I don't care what you call it, 10%, giving, giving generously, whatever you want to call it, give to God. It just works. Second player, Canada Revenue Agency. Here's a little joke. Dear Revenue Canada, I'm writing to cancel my subscription. Please remove my name from your mailing list. Wouldn't that be great if you could just tomorrow morning phone CRA and say, you know what, I think I paid enough taxes, so I'm done now. Just eliminate my name. I don't want to ever hear from you again. It doesn't work that way. The tax rates in Alberta range somewhere between 10 to 15% of your income. Combine that with the federal rate, and you're probably going to pay somewhere between 25 and 48%. And then on top of that, there is fuel tax, and there is GST, and there is carbon tax, and there is capital gains, and there is investment tax, and there's property tax. Are you depressed yet? Aren't you glad you came to church this morning? Well, just know this. The CRA will always get their money. You may not like it. You may find legal ways to keep more of it, but for the most part, they're going to get what they think is owed to them. And as Christians, it's okay. We're to pay our taxes. The Bible talks about that. But there's some really good news. The CRA actually encourages us to give to God. When you combine the federal and provincial tax credits together, Albertans receive right around 50% tax credit for every dollar donated to charity over $200. That's the highest in all of Canada. I pastored a church with 77 different birth nations, and most of the people who came to Canada in their countries, they don't get tax credit at all, and so they just give. In Canada, we get 50% back of whatever we get. That's pretty good news. One more thing on this. Today's tax laws allow a person to receive tax credits for giving up to 75% of your taxable income. So if you made $100,000, you could give $75,000 to the work of God, and you would get a tax credit back for that same amount. And then estates can actually get tax credits for 100% of what you give to charity. Third player is you and your family. The Bible tells us that we're responsible to take care of our family financially. That means we work in order to have the money to look after them. We use good money management, so we make sure the bills get paid. We invest for the future, a number of different areas. I think one very important area that you can provide for your family is to make sure that you have what is referred to as a rainy day account. That means you should have in the bank account, a savings account somewhere between 3 to 6 months income in case there's some catastrophic event that takes place. So let's say you spend $4,000 a month. That means you should have somewhere between $12,000 and $24,000 put away. And it's only to be used for emergencies. It's not meant for a cruise. Regardless of how cold it may get in January in Alberta. And then if you use it, you replace it as soon as possible. So something happens. Your fridge goes. You got to go get a new fridge. You just go to your rainy day account, take out the $1,200, $1,500 that you need for that, and then there's no sleep loss. You don't have to put in your credit card and pay 3 times what the fridge is worth. You just go and get the money, replace it when you're done. Proverbs 21:20 says exactly that thing. In the house of the wise are stores of choice foods and oils, but a foolish man devours all that he has. The fourth player is your employer. Now, we all know that when you get your pay stub, there are a number of deductions on it. They're on the screen. I'm not going to go through it. But, you get $2,000, but you only get $1,500 in cash. My wife and I were helping a couple from Uganda, and they came to Canada, and they thought, man, they phoned and said, we got a job, and we're going to make all this money. And I said, no, you're not. Wait till your first pay stub comes in. And they said, oh, my goodness, look how much money got deducted from my account. Well, that's just the way it is in Canada. And that's okay. We're supposed to pay our tax, we savings, and all those kind of things that go on for pension. Number 5 is your creditors. Now, not everybody has creditors, but some do. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 7 says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. Debt is one of the killers of wealth creation and good money management. Now, that doesn't mean all debt is bad. I think there's probably 3 things that debt is okay for, but most of debt is bad. And one of the main reasons it's bad is because of the interest you have to pay for the privilege of spending money you don't have. So how do you get out of debt if you find yourself there? The Bible tells us that continuing to do something that's proven dangerous in the past, it's just a foolish endeavor. Proverbs 22:3 says, a prudent man sees danger and takes refuge. The simple keep going and suffer for it. So here's 4 ways to get out of debt. Number 1, stop credit card spending. Studies show that you will spend somewhere between 12 and 18% more money in a month if you use credit cards instead of cash. This happened to me recently. I had a $50 bill in my pocket. Been carrying it around for a long time. I usually use credit card because I get 2% cash back. And so I thought, I'm going to pay with a $50 bill. So I got up to the till. I've got the $50 in my hand. I'm handing it to the person at the till. And it's like, this is $50. This is real money. And so she goes to take it, and I'm kind of worried. Like, we had a little bit of a wrestling match. I don't want to let go of this $50 because it's real. Finally, she won, and I gave the $50 up. But using cash is a great way to kind of slow down your expenses. Number 2, pay off your debts with the highest interest rates first. That's usually credit card debt, somewhere between 19 to 23, 24%. If you're really in debt, you may want to look into consolidating your debt into one manageable debt, which usually results in lower overall payments. Number 3, contact your creditors. Now, if you're in real trouble, talk to your creditors before they come looking for you. I've often suggested this to people, and almost every single time, creditors are willing to work with you if you're proactive in talking to them first. They don't want to chase you down because it costs them money. Plus, it proves that you're responsible. You want to take care of your debt. So phone them first. And then number 4, consider lifestyle adjustments. You see, in order to get from where you are, spot marked X, to the goal that you have, you're most likely going to have to make some adjustments in the lifestyle to which you become accustomed. Let me just give you some ideas on this very quickly. Number 1, stop any form of borrowing. Just don't borrow any more unless it's an appreciable item. Number 2, develop a budget. Most Canadians don't have budgets. You could be those rare people that do. There's a plan on page 20 of your manual. Work out a payback plan. If you're in debt, figure out, how am I going to get this paid off, and then hold to that schedule. Exercise self-discipline, which is where most of us fall apart on this. Let me just give you a few ideas on this. Whatever it is, don't buy it today. Okay? You see something, you see a new, TV or whatever it is, and you look at it, oh man, I need a new TV. Mine's only 51, this is 55 inch. That would be so good in my living room. Don't buy it today. Go home and think about it. Most likely, in 24 hours, you will not buy that item. Now, don't do that when you're pulling up for gas in your car. Like, okay, I don't know, I'm not supposed to buy it today. I'm supposed to wait 24 hours. No, that's okay. Pay with cash. I've already talked about that. Here's an interesting one. Don't buy beverages when you go out for dinner. Instead, take the money you would have spent on that and invest it. Do you know that if you did that, over 40 years, you would have $170,000 in your bank account for your retirement? I was telling this in a church a little while ago. At the end of the service, the pastor said, hey, some of us are going out for dinner. Would you like to join us? I said, yes. I got there a little bit late, and everybody's seating around the table. The server comes along and says, so what does everybody want for drinks? And they all looked to me and said, oh, nothing today, thanks. Just water, just water. So my wife and I do this. I don't care whether somebody else is paying for it or I'm paying for it. We don't buy drinks unless it comes with the meal already. Learn to do it yourself. Learn to YouTube. Learn to check it out. You know, everything that you need to know is on YouTube. Like there's 50 videos for every single thing. I did this for my motorcycle the other day. I needed to change the clutch. I didn't know how to change it. And so I went on YouTube and it showed me. And it would have probably cost me $200 or $300 if I take it into a motorcycle dealer because motorcycles just cost a lot of money. And so I pulled it apart. Within about 20 minutes, I had it all back together and it was fixed. No money. Use the library instead of buying books. My wife and I bought Kobos a couple of years ago. We download everything when we go on holidays. It's also a little bit smaller than bringing 10 novels with you. Just a way to save money. Don't go to movies, okay? Not because they're wrong, because they're so expensive. Wait till they come out in video. Yeah, you'll be 3 months behind everybody else, but you'll save a whole lot of money. Do you know that the markup on popcorn in the theater is 1,275%? So if my wife and I ever do go to movies, we all only go in the wintertime. Why? Because we take really big coats. Here's a pop. Here's a chocolate bar. We just fill our pockets with all this. We don't buy anything at the kiosk. And then we also, for a number of years now, my wife and I practice something called Frugal February. In Frugal February, we chose it because alliteration, Frugal February. But it's only got 28 days. Now, my wife's a little bit more of a spender. She's not terrible, but she's a little bit more spender than I am. She can handle 28. She can handle 31. So for 28 days, we don't go for coffee, we don't go for dinner, we don't buy clothes, we don't buy anything unless we absolutely need it to survive. Do you know what it teaches you? Great discipline. And when you're disciplined in one area, it usually spills over into other areas. The sixth player is your neighbor. Do you know that it was Christianity that taught the world about charity? In fact, our belief in charity comes from a God who gives. For God so loved the world that he gave. Or the story of the Good Samaritan. Proverbs 11, 24, 25. It's on the screen, but if this verse was not in the Bible, I would not believe it. It's possible to give away and become richer. It's possible to hold on too tightly and lose everything. Yes, the liberal man, that's not politics, by the way, okay? The liberal man shall be rich. By watering others, he waters himself. So sponsor a child. Give to an extra need. The old Pentecostal handshake to somebody who's needy, and you put $20 in your pocket and you shake somebody's hand and they get the 20 and you walk away without it. Lots of ways to be a good Samaritan. Principle number 5, plan for your retirement. Now, before I say anything else in this area, it's always a good idea to talk to a wealth consultant or an advisor. Do you know in 1980, there were 6 people working in Canada for every person that was collecting pension. In the year 2030, which is only a little ways away, there'll only be 3 people working in Canada for every person collecting pension. That should send us a very strong message that relying on OAS or CPP all by itself may be not the best decision. So here's a couple of ideas. Start with an RRSP. The advantage of an RRSP is you get to defer paying taxes now so that when you take your money out at retirement, which is when you'll probably be in a lower tax bracket, you'll pay less taxes. Plus, all the money you make during that time is also tax-free until you take it out. Take advantage of compound interest. Compound interest, Einstein said, is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays for it. Compound interest simply means you invest some money, $100, you get $10 interest. You take the $10 and you put that in the bank. Next year, you're now making interest on 110. And then on 120. And it just keeps kind of going up. It's like a hockey stick. It kind of goes really like this for a little while. And then after a while, it just starts taking off. That's called passive income. That means you're making money when you're sleeping and you're not working for it. Number 3, invest in mutual funds on the advice of an advisor. Investigate the value of TFSAs. This is the best gift that the government of Canada ever gave Canadians. You pay your taxes on your money, you invest $7,000, $7,500 per year. I think it's now up to about $110,000 per person, married couples, $220,000. You can catch up on that if you want. There's no time limit on it. Whatever you make on that money will never be taxed. So if you make money for 20 years on that, interest, dividends, whatever you make, that money is not taxable. It's a great, great gift. Number 5, consider kingdom investments. PAOC gift annuities, gift securities, PAOC foundations. If you want more information on that, I can talk to you about it. Here's principle number 6. Do the final touches, or what we call estate planning. Now, the whole subject of death is kind of a serious subject, so maybe a little bit of humor is in order. Here's a guy, he's watching television with his wife or sitting on a couch. He says, just so you know, I never want to live in a vegetative state dependent on some machine. If that ever happens, just unplug me, okay? And she does. Estate planning. Now, it's really important to plan for today, but it's also really important to plan for the future, especially in 2 ways. First, for the potential time in which you're not able to make decisions for yourself any longer. Maybe it's dementia, Alzheimer's. And secondly, we need to plan for our death. And that's where estate planning comes into the picture. And so these 2 areas we need to be really aware of and cognizant of. So there could come a time in your life when you just can't do it anymore. You don't have the ability to make decisions. So it's really wise at that time to have a substitute decision maker, or different word, power of attorney. Now in Alberta, we have to have 2 documents. We have to have a power of attorney in our health and also one for our finances. Somebody who's going to make decisions, they stand in your place. Do you know if you do not have these documents, banks, lawyers, CRA, hospitals will not talk to you or your relatives without these documents. Just talked to somebody last week, did their will for them, works in a care home, and she says, we deal with this all the time. Somebody comes in and says, I'd like to talk to a doctor about my spouse who's now in the hospital, and they say, show us your POA. You don't have one, we don't talk to you, okay? So in order to do that, we have forms that we can work with you on. You need a primary power of attorney, that's usually your spouse if you're married, and you need a backup in case your spouse is unable to do it. The other area we can help you with is in preparing a will. Do you know that according to an Angus Reid poll, 69% of people between the ages of 35 and 44 do not have a will. 49% between the ages of 45 and 54 do not have a will, and 13% said they do have a will, but they're not up to date. Many people say that I don't want to do a will because it just costs too money. And I know in Edmonton, it costs around $2,000 to get wills done for a couple. Another reason that people don't want wills is because they say, if I make a will, I'm going to die within 2 weeks. That's not true. Okay? I've done a few thousand wills. Only 2 people have died, and the reason they died is because they had terminal cancer when they were doing their will, which is why they wanted a will, and they died shortly after. Some people believe that wills are only for the elderly, and lots of people think, there's lots of time in the future. Yeah, right. Listen to what James says. You don't even know what's going to happen today, never mind what's going to happen tomorrow or down the road. You're a mist that appears for a little while. So when do you need a will? Well, if you're 18 years of age, you need a will. If you've been recently married or divorced, if you have a will, you need to change your will. It's super important. If there's special family concerns, if your old will does not reflect your current thinking. Also, if your will doesn't provide for God's work, you may want to think about that. And if you're a new parent, I'll say more about that in a minute. What are some of the advantages of having a will? Well, it avoids family conflict at a very emotional time. Talk to so many people and they say, we would never fight. Well, my kids are going to be great about this. Only to find out that, man, if there's $3 million on the table, it does cause a little bit of fighting sometimes. But if there's a will, there's no fighting. Somebody may not like it, but it's there. It controls the way. You get to control now the way that your assets will be distributed. It can provide for special circumstances. Here's the important thing. It secures the future of your minor children. You get to name guardians. You get to set up trusts now. Do you know that if you do not have a will and you have not named guardians, the state will determine where your children go? It does not mean they're going to give them to a homeless person, but they may give them to a family member that doesn't have the same values and morals you have, and they'll bring them up in a different way than you planned. Having a will also allows you to make provision that some of your assets may go to the Lord's work, and it might allow you to save money on your estate. Here's some questions. If you're interested in doing a will, who's going to be the primary and secondary executor, not executor? They spell the same, but they sound different. Who's going to be the guardians of your minor children? Would you like to include a charitable percentage, which helps to offset some of the taxes you might have to pay? Are you going to do it yourself, turn to a lawyer, or buy a will kit? I've talked to so many people who went to Staples, bought a will kit, they took it out, they looked at it, put it back in, and 10 years later, they've never done anything with it. There's two kinds of wills that we can help you with. There's what we call a traditional will. You'll see the slide on the screen. First of all, the estate goes to the surviving spouse if there is one. Then there's an estate created by the executor. You have to pay all debt. You have to pay all taxes. All legal bills need to be paid. Whatever's left over gets divided amongst the beneficiaries. Or we can help you with a charitable will. Much the same thing, except you decide, I'd like to do something for charity. That brings a tax credit. In the same way that you get a tax credit for you giving when you're alive, you also get, your estate gets a tax credit when you passed away. The advantage is, with a charitable will, the kingdom of God gets more. The government, liberal government, gets less. This is not politics. I'm just saying we have a liberal government. So here's a question for you. How long do you think it takes for a beneficiary, usually your kids, to spend his or her inheritance? Not very long. The average is 6 months. So here's an interesting thing. I'm a saver. I'm saving up all this money. We don't do this. We don't buy beverages at meals, all this kind of stuff. My kids are going to get a good portion of it. They better not spend it all in 6 months, or I'm going to come back and haunt them. That's not very good biblical theology, but and they spend it on all sorts of nice toys, right? Just here's all the money you saved. You constricted yourself from spending money, and now if your kids spend it on paying the mortgage off, good financial decision. Here's a charitable will. This is what it does. It recognizes the blessing of God that you've received throughout your lifetime. It expresses a good steward philosophy of life. It demonstrates to your family members your values. Here's, I think, what's going to happen when my kids get our will. We just redid it again. We've always had a charitable component in it. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to open the will, and they're going to say to each other, I've got two kids, they're going to look at each other and say, I knew it. Just knew it. My parents were always faithful to giving to God when they're alive. Look what they did. They still gave to God when they're dead. It is our last statement that we'll be able to make to our kids about the value of God in our life and how we always put God first. It promotes a sense of self-satisfaction through generosity, builds a legacy after you're gone. You're up in heaven, and your money's still doing things. It's having, stuff happening in Pincher Creek, and God, people are coming to faith in Christ, all because you added a little bit of financial generosity. Builds a legacy, helps to offset taxes after you're gone. Which brings us full circle back to where we started, these important verses. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and thieves break in and steal. But store for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And let me close with this one more verse, one that I think we'd all want spoken of us at the end of this life and the beginning of the next. Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. This is talking about money, by the way, this verse. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Now, here's the really good news. I'm here today, tomorrow, maybe Tuesday. We don't know yet. If you would like help with your wills, you can sign up. There's some sheets at the back. I think somebody's going to be helping you with that. I will help you with getting your wills done and your power of attorney documents, and we'll do it completely for free. Won't charge you a single penny. I did have one couple come in, lady came to church, the husband didn't, and he said, there's nothing free in this world, and he came in and he said, so, how much is this going to cost me? I said, it's free. He said, I know, but how much is it going to cost me? Comes from Canada. I thought he understood English. And I said, no, it's free. And at the end of it, he said, so, how much do I owe you? I said, no, sir, you don't get it. It's free. Well, he walked out with the biggest smile on his face. He got $2,000 he spent, but he didn't have to pay for it. So we will do it completely for free. I've trained in how to do wills. Actually, anybody in Canada can do wills, but I'm trained to do it. We have the best templates in Canada for setting it up. The only thing we can't do, so a couple things, just a couple of warnings. If you're separated or divorced from your spouse, we can help you, but it's got to be a legal separation. That means you file taxes separately or you live separately. That's called a legal separation in Canada. We can also not do trusts for adult children. So maybe you have a special needs child, you want to set up a trust for them. We can't do that. I'd love to be able to do it. We just don't want to take the risk of wording it incorrectly. Everything else we can help you with. Great to be with you today. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to turn it back to Ewan, wherever he is. There he is. Okay.